Week 9 Miami Dolphins fans, also known as Buffalo Bills Week. I was going to call this Revenge Week, but quite honestly, I don't even know which matchup against the Bills that we would be seeking revenge for, because we need a lot of revenge matchups to make it somewhat even against the way the Bills have, and this pains me to say, have absolutely owned us recently. But here we are, week 9 against the Bills, and it's the final regular season matchup because, yeah, as you probably remember all too well, the primetime game week 2, we get absolutely dismantled. You could say that. I don't think I'm going to get pushback on this. If our season ends up continuing on the trajectory that it's on, week 2 against the Bills is what you could say really ended up pretty much derailing this season. A 31-10 loss. Quite honestly, the game was over by half. Obviously, that's the game we lose Tua with the concussion to IR, but there's a few things to consider when looking at this matchup. Obviously, it's a chance to win. Every week is a chance to win. If you're going to build any sort of momentum heading into the second half of the season, you're going to have to win in Buffalo, which does never come easy for anyone, and especially for the Miami Dolphins. Also, that seat's getting warm for Chris Greer, for Mike McDaniel. Both of those could use a break from the roasting that they are currently receiving. And then finally, it's straight up an opportunity to show, you know what, big brother, you can't always push us around. So that is what is on the line this week, Dolphins fans. We're going to jump into everything in here in a second. Before we do, we take some questions that we answer on the final preview and prediction video each week. If you've got anything that you'd like me to address, go ahead, drop it in the comments. We'll get to as many as we possibly can. Let's start with some of the notable items from Wednesday's injury report. We get a little bit of wide receiver help back potentially here in the near future. River Craycraft's 21-day practice window has officially been opened, which means the Miami Dolphins have 21 days to either decide, yep, we're bringing him back to the active roster, or if he's not brought back in that point in time, he will remain on IR for the remainder of the season. So we will keep an eye on that. He was limited in Wednesday's practice. The other big news in regards to players on the injury report, Mike McDaniel said no surgery required for defensive tackle Zach Sieler. He also said that a decision will be made on his playing status later this week. Obviously, avoiding injury is big. If you are avoiding surgery is big. If you have surgery, it probably complicates a little bit more going on. We will see. Mike McDaniel said we'll have a little bit more information later in the week. We're going to dive more into player availability and availability in this week's final preview and prediction video. But let's take a deeper dive into these two teams heading into week 9. And we'll start with this Buffalo Bills offense, and quite honestly, being one of the main competitors that we've been facing the last few years in the division, the team that's essentially owned the division since Tom Brady has decided to move on to Tampa Bay and then hang it up. We know all about Josh Allen. He is a threat to ball. He is a threat to run the ball and create off script. He does have a history of turnovers, although, and we'll get to this more, he has been very good at protecting the ball this year. And quite honestly, he is an absolute Miami Dolphins killer. That has been his MO literally since entering the NFL. We talked about him protecting the ball. This is crazy to me. Just 1 interception thrown, 1 fumble lost so far this year. So it's not like in the past where we can say, you know what, Josh Allen might be good for a turnover or two. We might sneak an extra possession out. That is not the case this year. He has been extra protective of that ball. On top of that, we talk about them owning us. Bills have won 5 in a row against us, including 12 of the last 13 matchups. Josh Allen and his success has obviously been a huge part of that. And quite honestly, going into this season and what he's done through the first half of the year, he's answered the questions as to how he would do without an alpha wide receiver, how he would do without Stephon Diggs, because pre-Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen wasn't all that good. With Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen was pretty damn good. Well, he's now showing that, you know what, he's learned, he's grown, he's become one of the NFL's best quarterbacks, and he doesn't even need this alpha wide receiver. On the ground, it's the James Cook show. He's having also a solid all-around season. Tied for 3rd in the NFL with 7 rushing touchdowns, and we are a big culprit of that. We had all that we could handle with James Cook back in that week 2 matchup. 11 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, another touchdown through the air. He had 3 first half touchdowns against our Miami Dolphins. If you remember that game, Josh Allen threw a season low 19 times, and that was due in large part just because of how bad we were playing, how much they were beating us by, but also just how effective James Cook was with nearly every touch that he had. So containing James Cook, putting more pressure on Allen to actually perform as a quarterback, maybe play the quarterback position, that's going to be a huge key to victory in this game. Take a quick break here. Receiving wise, we talked about Diggs leaving. Well, we talked about how well Allen has played with Diggs' departure. He's been doing it by spreading the ball around. 3 players with 300 or more receiving yards so far this season. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid. Get this, 8 players have caught touchdowns for the Bills this year. 5 of those players have caught multiple touchdowns this year for the Bills. Very impressive job spreading the ball around. Basically, he's getting all this production as well, and it's not even involving kind of the alpha wide receiver that they did trade for a few weeks back, Amari Cooper. He's going to be playing in his 3rd game for the Bills on Sunday here against the Dolphins. So it's going to be interesting, in my opinion, to see how does Anthony Weaver, how does he treat Josh Allen? How does he treat this plethora of playmakers that have been kind of spreading the love around? Because we honestly didn't get a true look at what that defense was going to look like back in week 2, just because of how quickly everything unraveled with Tua's injuries, the turnovers before that, James Cook having his way. We didn't really get to see what Anthony Weaver had in store for Josh Allen. So looking forward to that. One thing I'll end up with the Bills offensively here as well. Relatively speaking, especially compared to how we've done in the past, we've done a good job handling tight ends this year. Well, that all went to hell last week against Arizona Cardinals and Trey McBride. So I'm also going to have my eye on how do we attempt to limit the production of Dalton Kincaid? Because yes, he's only in his 2nd year. He's already proven that he can be one of those top end, especially receiving tight ends, and Josh Allen is just making plays both on script and off script, and Dalton Kincaid is a big benefactor of that as well. All right, so the Bills statistically are basically in the middle of the NFL in both run and pass defense. However, they are 6th best in points allowed per game. And quite honestly, when it comes to scoring, I'll say meaningful points against the Bills in recent history, it's been a bit of a struggle. Guys that you need to pay attention to, the edge rushers. You got AJ Epinesa. You got Greg Rousseau. Von Miller is eligible to return this week as well. All of these guys can get to the quarterback. All of these guys can blow up plays, kill drives, force turnovers, all the negative things that really good edge rushers can do. So we're going to need strong play, obviously from the offensive line, but looking at you, Teron Armstead, looking at you, Austin Jackson as well. The other thing that's going to be important defensively, and I know we say this more offensively or not, and I mean this defensively against the Bills, us offensively, having that balance of the run and the passing game, truly utilizing these 3 running backs that we have, create longer possessions. Keep those Bills edge rushers at bay. I'll say this. We've quite literally figured a few things out here in the run game over the last 3-ish games. Build off that. Please, for the love of God, just build off that. And most importantly, find a way to get Jaylen Wright more than 2 carries that he's been getting in these games. Against the Seahawks, 2 carries, 18 yards. Last week against the Cardinals, I think he had 2 carries, 18 yards. This guy is averaging over 5 yards per carry, but for some reason he gets his 2 carries, a few possessions into the game, and then we never hear from him again. He is simply too good to limit him like that. Hell, look back to the draft. We traded up to get this guy. What are we hiding him from? So if that means less Raheem Mostert carries in this game, I'm for it is what it is. Now, there's one thing that I have been told as it pertains to Jaylen Wright. I have been told that we can expect more touchdowns for Jaylen Wright moving forward. Mike McDaniel in-house was talked to about this, but now we just got to wait and see, is Mike McDaniel going to stay true to his word? Is he going to heed that advice and move forward and get Jaylen Wright more involved? I sure hope he does, and I'm guessing that you surely hope he does as well. When passing the ball, Dolphins fans, look, we've just got to make the plays. Last week we had drops by Jonnu Smith, Jaylen Waddle. Both of those cost us really good opportunities and chance at putting more points on the board. Things went wrong. A lot of little things went wrong in that game. But if you take away those drops, I truly think that game changes. Now even go back to the first game we played against the Bills. This is something small, but just factor these things in. If Julian Hill catches a slightly high thrown ball from Tua as he's basically crossing the goal line early in that game, we score, we lessen that deficit. And guess what? Later in that possession, that's when Tua got hurt. He doesn't end up getting that concussion. That changed so many things. So yeah, when your number is called in the receiving game, just go out there and just make the plays. I don't know how many times I got to say this. We heard all offseason, Jaylen Waddle making an emphasis, hands catching, not letting it get to his body. More often than not, he's still letting that ball. It's like old habits. He's just got these old habits still. He's letting the ball come into him and it just bounces off of him. Got to get that cleaned up. We also got to find a way, get Tyreek Hill involved in meaningful ways when you're playing against the Bills. Week 2, he goes 6 catches, 24 yards, no touchdowns. Last year in the first meeting, 5 catches, 58 yards. The second meeting he did have 7 catches, 82 yards and a touchdown. And coincidentally enough, in that second meeting, we only lose by 7. Get this guy involved, because outside of that second matchup last year, those stat lines that I just rambled off, those are not your typical Tyreek Hill stat lines in games which he have won since he has been here. So I'm putting that on Mike McDaniel as well. Find ways to get this guy the ball, find ways to move the ball offensively against the Bills, and do it early, because this is a team, and we proved it last time we played against them. If we get down early, if this team folds, we're in for another long day, Miami Dolphins fans. I am going to wrap this one for there, Dolphins fans. Like I said, though, if you've got any questions that you would like addressed in the next preview and prediction video, you know what to do. Go ahead and drop them in the comments. Whoo, Dolphins fans, it's Bills week. I'm super excited for this game, but at the end of the day, it's like, God, like we need to get it right. I thought that last week against the Cardinals was your opportunity to get right. Turns out it not to be, and now you've got to face probably, I'll say it, one of the best teams in the AFC, despite the fact that they've got a couple of head-scratching games as well. I've rambled on long enough. We'll chat more in the preview and prediction video. But until then, Dolphins fans, fins up.